The sound came from her laptop. Not loud, not obvious, just enough to slip past the Spotify playlist and the boiling pasta water. It was a breath, then a whisper, then a man's voice saying her name, softly, stretched out, like honey dripping off a spoon. She wasn't home, and she'd forgotten to mute her laptop. I stood there, one hand still holding the Parmesan grater, the other frozen in midair. The kitchen smelled like basil, like my stupid little effort to surprise her with her favorite pasta after her trip. My shirt still damp with sweat from cleaning, cooking, planning. The voice spoke again. Lower now. I can't stop thinking about your skin. I didn't throw the laptop. I wish I had. Instead, I walked around the counter. Quiet. Careful. Like it was a crime scene. Because in a way it was. The screen was open. FaceTime. The call had ended, but the log was still there. 3 hours ago. Same number. No name. Just a little gray heart emoji beside the number, like a cruel joke. That's when the nausea started. That creeping, thick feeling that starts somewhere behind your ribs and climbs up into your throat like a vine. I stood there until the water boiled over and hissed against the burner. Until the pasta stuck together. Until the sauce burned to the bottom of the pot. She said it was a girl's trip. She even texted me a photo of cocktails. A blurry selfie with Marissa and someone's elbow. I believed her. Of course I did. What kind of husband doesn't? Me. Now. I guess. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened the hallway closet and pulled out the suitcase she hadn't taken. The big one. The one we used on our honeymoon. I opened my dresser drawers. I started folding. I didn't even notice I was packing until I looked down and saw my college hoodie in my hands. The one she always borrowed and never washed. I set it on top of the pile. I stared at it for a while. Then I took it back out. Not out of sentiment. Out of spite. I wasn't taking a single thing she touched. I left that night. While she was sipping overpriced cocktails and pretending to miss me. I moved out. Quiet. Fast. A single Lyft ride. No goodbye. No warning. She never thought I'd leave. But the moment she forgot to mute her laptop, she lost the right to be surprised. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. The room at Owen's place was clean but smelled like stale printer ink and the kind of loneliness only divorced IT guys collect like dust. He offered me whiskey. I said no. He offered a hug. I took it. We're not close like that, but I think he saw something in my face that made him back off after. I lay on his guest futon, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me like I owed it money. The hum was too quiet to distract me, too loud to ignore. I tried playing scenarios in my head. What I'd say to her. How she might react. Would she cry? Would she confess? Would she lie straight through her teeth, like always? I had the receipt now. Evidence. That one careless FaceTime log had pulled down the curtain she'd stitched so carefully with alibis, spa masks, and the girls say hi. And I wanted to believe, God, I wanted to, that it was just a stupid mistake. Some fantasy gone too far. A lonely friend, maybe. Emotional cheating. Something with enough wiggle room to pretend we weren't broken. But by morning, that fantasy had evaporated, just like her loyalty. I went back to the house while she was still gone. I didn't have a plan, just this urge crawling under my skin like I'd left something vital behind. I used the garage code. Stepped into what used to be our sanctuary and now felt like a model home, staged to sell to someone else. Everything was still where I left it. The burnt pasta pot. The Parmesan brick. The grated trails on the counter, like snow left behind by someone who never came home. Even her plants looked smug. Rows of succulents by the window, thriving on neglect and filtered light, like they didn't care who watered them. I brushed past one too hard, and it fell, dirt spilling like a secret across the floor. I didn't bother cleaning it up. Instead, I wandered into the bedroom and opened her nightstand. Inside, the usual. Lip balm. A journal with a lock. A charger. And a folded photo. One I hadn't seen in years. Us, at the lake house. I was kissing her shoulder. She was laughing. Her eyes half closed. That was before she started editing herself out of our life. Before she became curated. But what got me, what really cracked something in me, was what was on the back. In her handwriting. I wish I could always love him like this. That one line hit harder than the FaceTime call ever could. Because she knew. She knew. She wasn't some clueless cheater tripping into an affair. She understood she didn't love me the way I loved her, and she stayed anyway. Let me plan our future like it meant something. Let me bend over backwards trying to earn a heart that had already checked out. I sat on the bed for over an hour, holding that photo like it was radioactive. When the garage door opened suddenly, early, I nearly dropped it. She was home, and she wasn't alone. The garage door clanked and groaned like it always did. I never got around to fixing the motor, but this time it sounded louder, heavier, like it knew something I didn't. I froze. I was still holding the photo when the kitchen door opened. I heard footsteps, hers. I could tell by the sharp tap of her boots, the kind she wore when she wanted to feel taller, more powerful. Confident footsteps. Not the kind of walk you'd expect from someone coming home to a husband she didn't know had moved out. And then, the other sound. Lighter, slower. A second set of footsteps. Male. I didn't breathe. Not at first. I just stayed on the edge of the bed, her photo crushed in my hand, my pulse thudding in my ears like war drums. Then her voice, sweet, airy, like she was auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. You can leave your shoes on. He's not home. That sentence was a blade. You can leave your shoes on. He's not home. And just like that, my last sliver of denial evaporated. This wasn't some emotional affair or lost late-night phone call. This was full-blown, no room for misinterpretation betrayal. She brought him here. Into our home. Into our bed, maybe. Into the place I built for her. Cleaned for her. Cooked for her. Bled for her. My first instinct was to walk out the back door and never look back. My second was to stay. Hide. Watch. I wish I could say I chose the braver one. I didn't. I slid off the bed as silently as I could and moved to the hallway. They were in the kitchen now. I peeked around the corner just in time to see him. Tall. Beard. Athletic. The kind of man who looks like he always knows where his keys are. His hand brushed the small of her back like it was muscle memory. She smiled like she belonged to him. She opened a bottle of wine, my wine. The one I was saving for our anniversary. She poured 2 glasses. No hesitation. No guilt. No idea I was 15 feet away, barely holding myself together. Then she said something that hit me harder than anything yet. I might tell him next week. I don't know. Depends how he's acting. I might tell him. Like I was some pet she needed to put down. Like my entire existence depended on her schedule. That's when I stepped forward. Not fast. Not loud. Just enough to let my shoes scuff the floor and my breath announce itself. Her spine straightened like a struck match. He turned around first. I'll never forget the look on his face. Not fear. Not shame. Just confusion. Like I was an extra who wandered onto the wrong set. Then she turned. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. But nothing came out. Hi, I said. My voice cracked. I probably looked like I hadn't slept in years. She whispered, "You're supposed to be at Owen's." So she knew. She knew I'd left. She just didn't expect me to come back. I held up the photo. Found this. Thought maybe you'd want it when you're done drinking my wine and destroying what's left of my life. He stepped forward, like he was about to say something. Maybe apologize. Maybe defend her. I didn't let him. You need to leave, I said. Not you. I pointed at her. Him. He looked at her, waiting for direction. She didn't say anything. So he left. Coward. She stood there, glass still in hand, staring at me like I was a ghost. And then, almost casually, she said it. It wasn't supposed to be like this. That's when I laughed. Sharp. Loud. Ugly. No, I said. It never is. She didn't sit. She didn't speak. She just stood there in our kitchen. No, her kitchen now. Clutching that wine glass like it was some kind of shield, eyes flicking around the room like she was trying to find an exit that wasn't there. The silence between us stretched until it felt like a third person in the room. Not him. He was gone, but something worse. Something colder. I finally broke it. How long? She didn't answer. Not at first. Just took a sip, set the glass down gently, and leaned against the counter like she was about to give a TED talk on how to dismantle a man's reality. You don't want the details, she said softly. I laughed, dry, brittle. I didn't ask for details. I asked for time. But sure. Let's start small. Weeks? Months? Years? She sighed like she was the one exhausted. It started last fall, she said. After that stupid retreat, you begged me not to go on. The one in New Mexico. I remembered it. Vividly. She told me she needed clarity, that she'd been feeling disconnected. I wrote her a letter and slipped it into her bag. I don't know if she ever read it. I spent that whole week in silence, checking my phone every 5 minutes, hoping for a single text that never came. Why him? I asked. What does he have that I don't? She looked at me then. Really looked. And that was somehow worse. He listens, she said. That gutted me. I listened, I choked out. I spent years trying to understand you, make you happy, walk on eggshells so I wouldn't trigger some spiral. She shook her head. No, Curtis. You heard me, but you didn't see me. I changed, and you didn't want to admit it. You kept treating me like that scared little girl you married. I outgrew you. Every word was a blade, and she didn't even flinch as she twisted them. So that's it. I said. You evolved, and I didn't keep up, so you started sleeping with someone else in the name of personal growth? Her jaw clenched. I didn't plan this. I held up the burner phone. I'd gone back upstairs and grabbed it while she was drinking my wine and monologuing about her inner transformation. It was still warm in my hand. I tossed it on the counter. It bounced once, landed with a clack beside the corkscrew. You hid this under the bed, I said. If you weren't planning anything, why do you need a second phone? Her face shifted, the smallest crack. Then it snapped shut again. Because I knew this would hurt you, she whispered. So you knew? And you did it anyway. She nodded, finally. Yes. Silence again. Thicker this time. My throat felt dry. My hands trembled. I turned and opened the cabinet. Pulled out a glass. Filled it with water. Drank. Slowly. It tasted like ash. I'm filing, I said. Flat. Final. Tomorrow. She didn't respond. Just crossed her arms. You don't want to talk about this first? She asked. That one hit me sideways. Talk. I repeated. What is there to talk about? You've lived 2 lives. You had a whole other man inside this house. While I was folding your laundry and building a future, you were erasing me 1 glass of wine at a time. I didn't erase you, she said quietly. You erased yourself. Slowly. Over the years. You stopped fighting for me. I looked at her. Hard. Trying to find the woman I married somewhere in that face. But she wasn't there. Not even hiding. I fought, I said. I fought in all the invisible ways. The ones that don't look dramatic. The ones that look like unloading the dishwasher and learning your coffee order. The ones that look like silence instead of arguments. She didn't answer. She just turned her back. I walked past her. Down the hall. Out the front door. I didn't slam it. I wanted her to hear the click. That soft, final goodbye sound. Let her romanticize that. The motel smelled like bleach and sadness. Not the good kind of bleach, not fresh laundry bleach. The kind they use to erase things. Evidence. Mistakes. People like me. The front desk clerk had offered a smile when I checked in. One of those thin, practiced ones that means, I don't care what brought you here, just don't bleed on the mattress. Room 112. 1 lamp. A bed that made a crunching sound when I sat on it. And a cracked mirror that cut my reflection into 3 broken pieces. I didn't unpack. I just sat at the edge of the bed and stared at the wall, the motel's Wi-Fi login screen still glowing from my laptop. The only thing I'd managed to open was a blank Google Doc titled, What Happened to Me? I didn't type a single word. I just kept blinking, waiting for some part of me to reboot. The silence was loud. My ears rang. Every few minutes I thought about texting her. Not to ask for her back. I wasn't that far gone. But just to say something. I didn't. Instead, I scrolled through old photos. She and I in Maine. Her asleep on my shoulder. Us at that music festival in the rain, soaked, smiling, young. Before we knew how hard it is to love someone who's already halfway out the door. And then, a text. Not from her. From Marissa. Marissa, you don't deserve this. Can I call? My chest tightened. I stared at the screen, wondering how long she'd been watching this train wreck from the sidelines. I hadn't spoken to Marissa in months. She was Alina's friend, not mine. We were always polite, cordial. She liked me well enough, or at least pretended to, but we never exchanged texts. Until now. I didn't answer. 30 seconds later. Marissa, there's something you need to know. It wasn't just him. I read that message 5 times. Not just him. Suddenly the air in the room felt thinner. The walls too close. I stood up, phone still in hand, walking in small, anxious circles like I could pace away the meaning of those 4 words. I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was quiet. Shaken. Curtis, she said. I'm so sorry. I should have told you months ago. I didn't say anything. Are you okay? She asked. What do you mean not just him? I said, skipping past the pleasantries. There was a pause. Then a long sigh. She's been seeing someone else. Before that guy. Before this latest one. A co-worker. It started last spring. I felt the room tilt slightly under me. like the floor wasn't quite level anymore. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, my voice cracking. Because she swore it was over. She told me she made a mistake, that she still loved you, that it was just emotional confusion. And I wanted to believe her. We all did. But then she started lying again. New stories. New weekends. Same patterns. I leaned against the wall, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor, knees bent, phone trembling in my hand. She told you she loved me? I asked, barely above a whisper. She said she didn't want to lose you, that she didn't think you'd ever leave. And when you did, when you actually left, she panicked. She didn't expect you to grow a spine. I let out a bitter laugh. Well, I said, she always liked spineless men. Easier to climb over. Marissa didn't laugh. Instead, she said something that truly froze me. She's at your house right now, waiting. She asked me to message you, to soften it. I stood, heart racing, rage, confusion, and curiosity mixing in a dangerous cocktail. What does she want? I asked. I think she wants you to listen, Marissa said carefully. But if you go back there, just know, she's not telling you everything yet. Not even close. I hung up. For a long time I stared at the motel mirror, at my fragmented face, at the man I barely recognized anymore. And then, without thinking, I grabbed my keys and left the room. I wasn't ready for what I'd find when I got back. But I wasn't going there for her. I was going for the truth. The house was too quiet when I pulled into the driveway. No music. No voices. No footsteps. Just the faint hum of the fridge inside and the soft tick of the porch light I never remembered to replace. The curtains were drawn, all of them, like the house itself was ashamed, like it didn't want to see me either. Her car was there, parked crooked, like she pulled in fast and didn't care about the lines. I stood outside for a while, keys in hand, watching my own breath fog the cold air. Part of me hoped she'd open the door, that she was watching from the window, that this would be some kind of confrontation, an explosion, something to match the war inside my chest. But she didn't. So I let myself in. The smell hit me first, sandalwood and orange peel. Her signature candle. She always lit it when she was nervous, or when she needed to reset the energy, as she used to say. I stepped into the living room, and there she was, sitting on the floor, legs crossed, her back against the couch. No makeup, hair pulled back, wearing one of my old sweatshirts. For one disorienting second, I forgot everything. She looked like the woman I married. Young, small, almost fragile, like a ghost wearing her face. She looked up, startled but not surprised. I didn't think you'd actually come, she said. Neither did I replied, my voice flat. She nodded slowly and pointed to the coffee table. A leather-bound book sat there. Her journal, the one she never let me read. The one with the little lock on the side that I once tried to pick as a joke, and she didn't speak to me for a full day afterward. It's all in there, she said. Everything. I stared at it. Why now? Because I know you'll never believe anything I say anymore. And I don't blame you. I didn't move. I didn't sit. I didn't pick it up. I just looked at her. She was fidgeting, pulling at her sleeves, avoiding my eyes. It wasn't just sex, she whispered. That's not what hurts the most, right? I didn't respond. You wanted to believe I was still yours, even after I wasn't. I finally sat down across from her, knees to knees. The journal sat between us like a ticking bomb. You said you still loved me, I said. To Marissa. Why? Because I do, she said immediately. Too fast. Too desperate. I didn't know what kind of love it was anymore. That's not love, I said. That's guilt. She looked down. Maybe. I reached for the journal. Flipped it open. No lock this time. No secrets left to protect. The first page was dated nearly 2 years ago. I think I'm losing the version of him I used to admire. I know he's still there, but he's getting quieter. It's like I'm grieving someone who sleeps right beside me. I read the next page. And the next. Some of it was petty. Some of it was brutal. But then, something shifted. I started to see the entries change. A pattern. Mentions of him. Not me, the other man. Then someone else. Then the guilt. Then the decision to hide it all. Then something I didn't expect. I thought if I kept piling lies on top of the truth, eventually the truth would stop screaming. But it never does. It's always there, under the weight of everything I pretend to be. I stopped reading. I wasn't the husband you needed, I admitted. But you didn't have to make me the villain of your story. Her eyes welled up. You weren't the villain. You were the backdrop. Always there. Always silent. You think that's better? I snapped. To be invisible while your life collapses in front of you. She didn't answer. I stood up. You wrote everything down. Every feeling. Every betrayal. Every excuse. But did you ever write down my name? What I felt? What this would do to me? She looked up at me. No, she said quietly. Because I was afraid if I did, I'd have to face what I'd become. I walked to the door. She didn't try to stop me. But just as I was about to step outside, she said one more thing. Something that landed harder than anything she'd written in that book. There's one more thing you don't know, she said. And it's not in the journal. I turned back slowly, my heart already sinking. What? I asked. Her lips trembled. It's not just betrayal, she said. It's something bigger. Something I never meant to let happen. I stared at her, frozen. Then tell me, I said. She opened her mouth, but the doorbell rang before she could say a word. And everything changed again. The sound of the doorbell didn't match the moment. It was too cheerful. One of those default chimes that came with the house. Bright, polite, almost musical. Like someone had just arrived for brunch. But the look on her face was anything but casual. She didn't move. Just sat there frozen, lips parted like the next sentence was still waiting to be born. I turned toward the front hallway, instinctively bracing for something I couldn't name. Another man? A delivery? Police? I opened the door. And there, standing on the porch in a navy coat dusted with early frost, was someone I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. Nina, her sister, my ex-sister-in-law. We'd never been close. Too different. She was sharp where I was soft, private where I was transparent. The kind of woman who smiled with her mouth, but never with her eyes. After the wedding, she moved to Colorado and dropped off the radar. We barely spoke. She didn't come to family holidays anymore. Alina always said she was off the grid and emotionally unavailable. But now, here she was, staring at me like I was the ghost. Curtis, she said, can I come in? I stepped aside without a word. Alina stood up as Nina entered. The two of them didn't embrace. No dramatic sister reunion. Just a silent exchange that said too much. Nina took off her coat slowly, draped it over the arm of the couch, and sat down like she owned the place. I stayed by the doorway, watching them like some outsider in my own home. I told him, Alina said after a beat, her voice quieter now. Nina raised an eyebrow. Everything. Almost, she admitted. That word, almost, detonated in my brain. I stepped forward. What's going on? Why are you here? What does she mean, almost? Nina looked at her sister, then back at me. You really don't know, do you? I know about the affairs, I snapped. I know about the lies. The second phone. The co-workers. I've read her journal. What else is there? Alina sat back down, her hands visibly shaking now. This isn't about the men. Then what? I demanded. What is it about? Silence. Nina finally spoke. Curtis, she said slowly, choosing her words like weapons. Last year, while you were away for that work conference, remember the one where your flight got canceled and you had to stay in Seattle an extra 2 nights? I nodded, confused. What about it? That weekend, she said. Alina called me in the middle of the night. I hadn't heard from her in ages. She was panicking, crying, said she'd messed up, that she didn't know what to do, that it was already too late. I turned to Alina. What did you do? I asked, my voice a hoarse whisper. She looked up at me then, and for the first time since all this started, I saw it. Real fear. I was pregnant, she said. The words hit like a sledgehammer. What? I breathed. She nodded. It wasn't planned. I didn't even tell you. I was scared. I didn't know if it was yours. And I couldn't handle it. So I made the decision. The room swam. You got rid of it, I said. Not a question. She nodded again. Without telling anyone. Not you. Not even Nina until after. I didn't know what else to do. I thought maybe I'd pretend it never happened. I staggered back like someone had punched me in the chest. You were carrying a child that might have been mine. And you didn't even think I deserved to know? I didn't know who I was back then, she whispered. I was spiraling. I didn't trust myself, let alone anyone else. Nina stood. I told her to tell you. Over and over. But she was too ashamed. And when she found out she could never have kids again, my head whipped around. What? Alina's eyes filled with tears. There were complications. I didn't catch the infection early enough. The doctors said the damage was permanent. I couldn't breathe. I walked to the window, stared out into the dark, leafless trees. My reflection in the glass looked older than I remembered. 1,000 pounds heavier. You made a choice, I said, turning back to her. You made every choice. And all I did was stand still while you set fire to everything. I didn't want to ruin you, she said. You didn't ruin me, I said, voice cold. You erased me. Nina gathered her coat. I shouldn't have come, she muttered. But I thought maybe some kind of truth was better than silence. I nodded numbly. She left. Alina didn't speak again. She just sat there, small and broken, and I didn't know if I felt sorry for her, or if I just didn't care anymore. I walked out of the room. Out of the house. Again. Only this time, I didn't even close the door behind me. Let the wind decide what stays and what leaves. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new apartment, stirring a pot of soup that probably didn't need stirring, watching the steam rise like smoke from a life I'd finally walked away from. It wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms, creaky floors, bad lighting. The sink leaked if I turned the tap too hard, and the upstairs neighbor had a passion for vacuuming at 2 a.m. But it was mine. The keys jingled like something solid in my pocket again. The walls echoed with silence, but it was clean silence. The kind that didn't hide a second phone or whispered confessions behind closed doors. The divorce papers were signed a week ago. No drama. No courtroom breakdowns. Just ink and agreement, and a notary with dead eyes who didn't flinch when I passed the file back with a shaking hand. She didn't fight. Not for the house. Not for anything. In the end, she looked at me and said only this. You were always kinder than I deserved. I didn't say anything back. What could I say? But that sentence, it stuck with me longer than the rage ever did. Kind. I didn't feel kind. I felt hollow. Tired. But somewhere in the wreckage, something new was growing. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but clarity. A strange kind of peace that came from finally seeing things as they were, not as I wished they'd be. The journal sat in a box in the closet. I hadn't thrown it out, but I hadn't finished it either. I didn't need to. Her reasons no longer mattered. Not to the part of me that was rebuilding. A few weeks ago, I got a message from Owen. Just a meme, something dumb, but it made me laugh out loud for the first time in what felt like years. Then Nina texted to say she was moving back to the East Coast, and despite everything, she wanted to get coffee. No drama, no sides, just human conversation. I said yes. Maybe I wanted to be heard by someone who knew the ruins without needing a map. I started running again. Badly, slowly, but it felt good. The pain in my legs reminded me I was still alive. I even joined a weekly trivia night at a bar around the corner. The host knows my name now. Not sure when that started happening. The funny thing is, I don't miss her anymore. I don't miss the woman I found on the couch that night. I miss the idea of her. The version that laughed in diners and made terrible pancakes and fell asleep halfway through movies. But that version was long gone before I ever packed a single bag. What I miss most? The version of me that tried. That man was loyal, stubborn, romantic in the worst ways. He believed love could fix anything if you just worked hard enough. He didn't deserve the ending he got, but I'm proud of him. He stayed, and when it mattered most, he left. Now, I stir soup in a dim kitchen with leaky pipes and bad cabinets, and for the first time in a long, long time, I feel free.